Hello and welcome to Everybody Has a Story with Jeff Seltzer. I am your host, Jeff Seltzer. Every week I interview someone about their interests, their life, their stories, whatever they've experienced. I'm trying to learn about as many people as possible, share their stories, and share a few of mine along the way as well. If you're new to the pod, thank you so much for giving it a shot and checking it out. I think you have a lot of fun in this journey with me. If you listen or watch every week, thank you so much. Really appreciate you coming back and joining me again. And all the feedback I've gotten over the last few weeks has really meant a lot to me. About 2 months into this journey right now, and continue to be surprised by some of the interactions from this. Recently, I actually got a message from somebody at work. I guess word of mouth has taken off, and the dozens of you that are listening are talking about it, specifically some of my coworkers, as somebody reached out to me and was like, hey, I heard you know a lot about podcasting and you recently started a podcast, which I was like, wow, that's pretty cool that somebody actually asked. I was like, yeah, and this person wants to know a little bit more about like how to start a podcast, like what goes into podcasting, and to be a potential guest. So to that, I would say, awesome. If any of you are listening that I work with, that's awesome. Definitely reach out. Let me know if you want to be a guest. Let's get a topic and let's talk about it. Outside of that, obviously, as I've said every week, if you find me on Instagram at Everybody Has a Story Pod, my DMs are open. So if you want to send a comment, a question, or if you have a topic to be a guest about, just reach out to me there. We can set it up, record, and have a good time here. Outside of that, you can see us on YouTube at Everybody Has a Story Pod or on Spotify. We are also in video format. My personal Instagram is Seltzer77. You can reach out to the show directly via email if you'd like to at everybodyhasastorypod@gmail.com. For all things Jeff Seltzer, you can reach out or you can look at me at jeffseltzer.com. Got lots of random video clips, pictures, nonsense. There's a video of me from high school when I thought I had a TV talk show. It's really weird, maybe feels a little dated, but it is from 1993. So we're talking about 30 years since then. So it's kind of goofy, but you can see a 16-year-old me, which is always fun. Want to remind everybody that we are on all podcast platforms. You found us, I'm sure, here probably on Spotify, Apple, or YouTube. We are also on iHeartRadio, Amazon, Good Pods. What else are we on? We're also on Castbox. I think I said Amazon. We are anywhere you can find a podcast, you can probably find us. If there's a platform that you want to find us on that we're not currently on, definitely reach out and let us know. Outside of that, I'm really excited about my 2 guests that I have this week. So usually we go 1 guest. I think we did 2 guests once before, talking about a week in Philly a few weeks ago. But this week we have 2 guests. Both of which I honestly have never met up until a few minutes ago before we started recording. Really excited to talk to them. So I'm going to introduce the podcast now. I'm going to introduce Stephanie and Tracie Romano. Stephanie, Tracie, it's great to meet you both.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Awesome. Thank you. So first of all, welcome and appreciate you taking time out to talk to me on the podcast. So for our listeners at home in their cars or wherever they are, Stephanie, do you want to kind of give a quick 30 seconds on who you are?
Yeah, sure. So I'm a nurse practitioner. I cover a gastroenterology group in the hospital. I'm a very family-oriented, hands-on type of person. Kind of stay to myself, but nothing really too crazy about me.
Awesome. Well, Stephanie, it's great to meet you. And as some of our listeners might know, I've known your sister now for 15, almost 20 years, which is crazy.
Yes.
Thinking that I met Jamie, your sister, back in 2008, I think it was. And for those of you at home also, I may accidentally call Stephanie by her sister's name a little bit because they do have very similar voices. So I apologize in advance if that does happen. So just bear with me on this one. And then Tracie, great to meet you as well. Thank you for joining.
Nice to meet you.
Anything you'd like to share about yourself, a little background?
My name's Tracie. I am a nurse. I work in healthcare, home care, and also in the ER. I have 3 kids. I've been a nurse for about 22 years, and that's just me.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing, Tracie. That's really great. So thank you so much. So Stephanie and Tracie, the main topic for the show this week is going to be about DIY. So do it yourself, like home projects, things like that. So what I will do is I'm going to start off by saying, just like transparently, I am the exact opposite of DIY. So for me, my wife and I, Beth, we bought our house here in about 2005. At that point, I was, late 20s or so, and I knew very little, but I was like, I could probably figure things out. I think it was Christmas Eve, and our bathroom toilet just started running. I was like, oh, great, I could fix that, obviously, because, plumbing is super simple, and this is what we do. So Christmas Eve, started playing with it, and obviously it got about 10 times worse within about 30 seconds. So turned off the water, figured out what was going on, whatever else like that. Found a plumber that charged me probably triple time because it was, a holiday. came in, and ever since then, I was like, you know what, this is fine. Maybe I am not into plumbing. Let's leave it to the professionals and go from there. So Stephanie Tracie, I'm not sure who wants to kind of speak first, but like, how did you both first realize, or how did each of you first realize that you're interested in and or are good at doing DIY projects?
I think for me, it started like when I was super young. My mom is very, very hands-on. She's very crafty. She does everything for herself, from paint her own house to cut her grass to, you know, make wood little, crafts and things like that. So I think her influence kind of I started doing it too. Uh, and I think when you don't have, the money to spend on all the renovations and the expensive curtains and blinds and stuff like that, you just find a way to do it yourself. And I think that's how I got started, like, oh, these nice wood banisters would be nice if they were just wood instead of painted 5 times. So I'm going to strip them myself and see what it looks like, that kind of thing. And I think that's how I kind of just started doing things, making little Halloween costumes or, just more crafty things. And I think that like once I met Steph, she was like, oh, we can build that ourselves. And I was like, all right, sure, go ahead. And then, we kind of just started doing it all, from fixing our own toilet to putting in our own sink and faucet and, making curtains and making t-shirts and anything you think of. I think me and Steph have actually tried.
Which is
sometimes,
great.
Yeah.
sometimes failed, but I think,
Yeah.
for the most part, things have been a success,
Yeah.
sometimes we like fight and say, okay, let's try something different, and it works out.
Which is awesome. And Stephanie, I get to you in a second, but so
Yeah.
Tracie, I'm not going to make any assumptions about age, as I know, historically it's never the right thing to do.
Okay,
But
I'm a lot older than her.
I was going to say, I'm not talking about myself. I'm 46 years old, right? So as I said before, I was in high school in the 90s, right? And obviously that was before YouTube. That was before a lot of the resources that exist today, right? Like, not saying that, looking at a video on YouTube and that'll all of a sudden say, okay, great, now I could build a house based on what I saw. But I would imagine people who are, let's say, growing up now probably have more resources than we did growing up in terms of like how to do things. So, obviously Tracie, you'd be a little more nimble, I would assume, in terms of building things, in terms of finding things, in terms of figuring things out. Like, did you utilize books? Did you have people or like a mentor, or were your parents crafty that kind of showed you stuff? Like, how did that kind of come together?
It was more my mom and my sister and her sisters that were very like hands-on, because I grew up. I'm actually older than you, so that's just
That's impossible. I don't believe you, Tracie. No one's older than I am.
So,
that's what my kids say anyway. I'm the oldest, so.
So my mom made things, my aunts made things, and so they just kind of taught me, more of the I'm talking about more of the crafty things.
Sure,
When
sure.
it comes to building things, I kind of left that to Steph because she's the more tech savvy to look on YouTube how to do it. She's more of the planner, and come up with the plans. So, that kind of stuff I leave up to her. But the crafty things I've learned from, just word of mouth. And now I'll look things up and see how to
Sure.
do it. But, back then, before they had computers.
DIY was really DIY back then because you didn't have
Yeah.
other places to look. Right.
It was just test and fail.
That's right. And Stephanie, too, I guess to you as well. Like, how did you first find it, or how did you first realize that you were interested in it and you were good at it?
So growing up, I was a typical tomboy, daddy's little girl. And my dad was very hands-on. We grew up in Brooklyn, and he basically renovated our house. And I just watching him, I was like, that's great. Here's your tool. Here's your wrench. Like, I was right there next to him. And, where my sister was very different with that. She wanted no part. So I think that's where I got that, like, from. Like, my dad was like, I'll take care of it. I'll do it. And then he just started showing me. And then we brought the house, and it was like, there was so much that we wanted to do. And I was like, what, I worked overnight. So the nights that I wouldn't work, I was up all night long watching videos. I'm like, this is great. Look what we can do. Look what I'm like, I could do that. And I probably do it a little bit better because I'm very like type A. It has to be perfect kind of personality. And we just went off from there.
Nice. So you said you're from Brooklyn, or you grew up in Brooklyn. Weirdly,
Yeah.
I'm also from Brooklyn. I mean, I moved to Jersey when I was like 4 or 5, so I've been in Jersey for like 90+% of my life. What part of Brooklyn are you from, if you remember?
So we're from Bensonhurst,
Okay.
and I say I grew up in Brooklyn because I think my heart was always left there.
Sure.
I have, but we, for the most part, lived here, and my parents moved out to Middletown. So, I mean, I've been in Jersey most of my life, but Bensonhurst is where I was born.
Gotcha. Yeah. I think my mom's parents were from like Sheepshead Bay. That's where I was born. And
Yeah.
my dad's parents lived like in the Flatbush area.
Okay.
I've gone to Brooklyn a few times in the last few years, and it's always like heavy traffic. Like I've gone for like concerts or events
Oh
and stuff.
yeah,
It's a huge pain, but I mean, I remember
very
growing up,
much so.
going out there every once in a while, and it was. I mean, as a little kid, it felt very busy.
It's very busy. Yeah. We don't go back there that often anymore. All our family is kind of more towards us now.
Got it. And Tracy, where are you
Yeah.
from originally?
I'm from Somerset County, from Manville. It's a very small Polish town.
Yeah.
Um,
I
and
just real quick before you go any further, I actually worked in the CVS in Manville.
no
Um,
way, I lived right down the street underneath the tunnel.
Yeah, so when I was in college, and this is a bit of a tangent, but I'll go with it anyway. So I worked at a CVS, mostly in Menlo Park Mall in Edison, from like 96 till about 99. A couple of years in, I had no idea what I'm doing with my life. So I was going to college, but I was like, what do I do after college? So I was like, you know what? CVS is fine. I'll be like an assistant manager and kind of work from there. So they started sending me to different stores. So at one point, they needed like coverage of whatever. So I worked in the Manville store quite a bit, which was definitely interesting. It's an interesting dynamic. I mean, obviously, it's very different than working in a mall store. So, working in the mall store, Menlo Park Mall for CVS there, because it was in a mall, we could not have a pharmacy because you need a back entrance or exit to have a pharmacy. Additionally, we could only get deliveries overnight because they had to get the truck, would kind of block the parking lot. So we had to work overnight shifts, which was kind of a pain. Long story short, that was that. So worked in Manville, along with other stores. I would say, and again, without getting too PG or whatever in this one, what always entertained me was there used to be a place called Frank's Chicken House. Now,
Yep.
I'm not going to describe what it is because we want to try to keep this, I guess, young adult appropriate. But it was always funny to me because you can always tell who the employees of Frank's Chicken House were when they would come in and buy, let's say, cosmetics or various things before or after their shift. So it was always, for me, again, 19-year-old Jeff, which is a very funny situation, just kind of watching this and saying, what is going on? This is pretty crazy. I don't know.
Well,
Anyhow.
it's funny because when I went to college,
Yes.
people would ask me where I'm from.
Yes.
And I would say I'm from Manville, and they would say, "Oh, Frank's Chicken House."
Yeah, I remember growing up. I grew up in Edison.
Anywhere in
and,
New Jersey,
right,
you could
Frank's
always
Chicken House.
people always knew Frank's Chicken House.
Yeah, growing up in Edison, we read the Star Ledger newspaper, and like once a week, they always had an ad in the paper with who their, let's say, their guest was for the week. And again, me, I was, in high school, 13, 14, 15, like that always just cracked me up because I was like, a teenage boy, and this is what we laugh about. So very, very funny, very, very weird. But I'm sorry, continue. So you grew up in Manville, which is a small town for the most part.
It is a small town.
Yeah, it's like exit 12 off 287, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
My parents actually both grew up there.
Okay.
We lived in my father's parents' house growing up. So it was very, we were all just, there's 5 kids in a 4-bedroom house, and it was crazy, but I liked it. I mean, I think I graduated with like 32 people. That's how small of a town it is. But
that's insane. I mean,
yeah.
I in Edison, I grew up in South Edison, so we actually had, it was North Edison, South Edison. We had like 412 in my graduating class. So to have 30 something in a graduating class just blows my mind. But I mean, every town and every setup is different, I guess, right? It's a very different dynamic.
It's
different
crazy.
people that you're dealing with, right?
Yeah. So I think our classes tried to do a high school reunion, like a 30-year high school reunion, and they added like the whole decade because that's how
otherwise you can't get the numbers to make it worth renting
so
a hall,
anybody
right?
that graduated from like 1986 to 1997, you were invited.
Jeez, that's a lot. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Awesome. Very nice. So with that, again, Stephanie's from Brooklyn, Tracy from Manville. I'm from Edison, just for those keeping notes at home. So from that said, so you guys have both done a lot of, let's say, do-it-yourself home projects. So in looking at your, I guess, your shared Instagram for projects, whatever, one thing that kind of jumped out at me that I think Stephanie's sister shared with me was you guys, or one half of you, made a doghouse.
Yeah.
How did that come to be? Like, did you?
I had
sorry.
I had nothing. I had nothing to do with that.
Okay, so Stephanie, first of all, before we talk about it, so do you have a dog?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay,
We
you
have
do have a dog. So you looked at it and
yeah.
you said, "Hey, we have a need for a doghouse. I don't want to buy a doghouse. I could probably make a doghouse." Is that kind of how this came to be?
So we actually got a puppy, a 1-year-old, a little tiny dog. It was like 10 pounds when we first got her, and within 2 months, this dog like tripled in size.
Wow.
So we went from having this small little metal crate because she was crate trained. We wanted to keep it like that. We had this tiny little metal crate, and then all of a sudden she doubled and didn't fit into it. And we were like, oh my God, what are we going to do?
Right.
And in my head, I'm like, I don't really like, we've done so much work in the house. I'd like something, if it's going to be this big because she's ginormous, I would like something that's at least appealing on the eyes. So I just started looking things up and I was like, I'm not spending $500 on a doghouse. Like, that's just nuts to me.
Right.
So I just came up with the plan and built, I said, Tracy, I'm going to build this. We can do this.
Very cool. So a true doghouse, like from a store, would be like $500. What would you say all in, not including your hours? Obviously, you probably charge a very high wage per hour. But in terms of the actual equipment, the machinery, whatever else like that, like what would you say you paid for that project in terms of looking at the ROI of it?
I want to say in all, like just the wood and everything, maybe about 200.
Nice.
About
So,
$200, yeah.
so it's awesome. You got a hobby that you enjoy, and at the same time, you save money on because you're doing things that are practical and doing it for significantly less than you would pay for. And you can also customize it too, which is nice, right? Like I'm sure you could do things that maybe if you went to whatever, insert story here, you wouldn't find the exact specs you want for a doghouse, but you're able to build it however you want it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I just modified it last week. I mean, 4th of July, she's only one. She's 1.5 now, and she didn't like the fireworks, and she literally jumped. And so we built this door, and it just had like a mesh screen in front of it.
Okay.
And we had gone to bed, and I guess down the block they were lighting off fireworks, and all of a sudden the dog jumped up in the bed. I was like, oh my God, I'm getting robbed. Like,
no.
What's happening? Because like she's never done it before.
Right.
But she jumped right through the screen. And she did it again like a week later. And I was like, you know what? We got to upgrade her door and make it kind of semi-solid. So I ended up building a new door with made it more eye appealing and kind of went, kind of just flowed better than just a piece of mesh.
And how did she take to it? Like, was she like, "This isn't my house, what's going on?" Or did she immediately say, "Fantastic, let's do this"?
I said to Tracy, I was like, "Look at her. She looks like she's in jail because the door is almost so the bottom part is just solid wood with like the typical barn house like X in the middle,
Yes,
and then the up part is continuation of the black, like almost looks like jail bars, but they're wood. And so her face is just between the two like pieces. Like, what did you do? You're locking me in jail."
Is the doghouse indoors or outdoors? Because you said the dog can get access to your bed. I assume it's an indoor doghouse, or do you have like a dog?
Yeah, it's an indoor.
Okay,
So it's kind of like where she sleeps at night.
Yeah, we like to lock her up at night.
Yeah,
totally get it. I totally understand that. That's awesome. Again, like I said, like if somebody said to me, "Jeff, go build a doghouse," like A, it would be completely unappealing to the eye. B, it would look nothing like a doghouse. Like I remember, like in school, I guess when we had to, make things with either pottery or ceramics, like everything was an ashtray or a paperclip holder. Because for me, like anything that I tried to put together, it looked nothing like it was supposed to. So basically, it's kind of like you finish it up and like, okay, you can drop whatever you want in here, and that was pretty much it. But my assumption is, if you were in similar classes in middle school or high school, you were probably building more functional stuff than just an ashtray. Considering in my house, nobody smoked.
Yeah. Yeah, probably. I think if I could have, I would have built that. If I could do things over, I probably would go into like construction or a home improvement type of thing.
Nice. Well, I mean, we're never too old to do stuff like that, I guess. So, hobbies, side jobs, whatever else like that, right? Awesome.
Yep.
Can you ladies take me through a project that maybe you both worked on together that kind of like from start to finish, you kind of looked at it and said, okay, we want to create X. Okay, Tracy, you do this. Stephanie does that. Come together. Like, what does that look like? Like, just kind of take me through the process if you have one.
So we actually were painting our bedroom, and we wanted to do like this cool wall, like in our bedroom. And if you could see behind me, that's the design.
That's
But
awesome.
It's so funny because I was going to tell the same exact story.
so the original design that we had, it was more like it looked like diamonds on the wall. Like it was more angles and more measuring. But I was like, we could figure this out, you know? We cleared out the whole bedroom. We like, set up the ladders. We were measuring. We must have tried to do this about 50 times
Yeah.
and couldn't figure it out. We were like just at our wits' end. Like, you know. And usually Steph and I work very well together. Usually it's
Yeah.
this is what we need to do. I'll measure it, you cut it, like, and it's usually very calm when we work together. But this particular day, we just could not figure this out. And like, just, I mean, and we want to say, like, for the sake of our marriage, we need to change what we're doing.
You take a step back and like, okay, what's going on here? How do we do this before it blows up? Right.
Let's just say we figured out that we're not very good at angles, and
Okay.
that we both need to be on calm playing fields when it comes to making angle cuts.
Which is very, I mean, obviously we all have our strengths and weaknesses. My weakness is DIY. Yours is a little more micro within DIY. So it's important to look at it and say, okay, what can we do? What can't we do? And kind of, adjust along the way, right? That's what we do, right?
Yeah.
So
Yep.
I think we like threw in the towel for that night. I don't even remember if we
Yeah.
did it that day,
Yeah.
that night. And I was like, listen, we're just doing squares. And she was like,
Yeah.
all right.
Well, we realized after we did half of the wall and like had we literally, I can't tell you how much money we spent on the wall behind you, because we cut so many different angles, but we realized after the fact that like, hey, this wall's not typically, it doesn't seem even, like it's not your perfect wall.
Right.
And I guess we didn't know that going into it, which would have been great. And then like you watch all these videos and you're like, that's why they're using painter's tape to map it out first, because $200 later in wood just to scrap it. But yeah, that one worked out best.
I was like, I don't like you right now, and we're gonna stop
Yeah.
doing this.
But I mean, for the sake of any relationship at that point, I mean, obviously a key trait is to say, okay, realize when it's not working, take a step
Yes.
back, not escalate it more and say, why you blah, 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 blah. It's figure out,
Yeah.
okay, let's take a breather, let's take a step away, figure it out. And you guys came together. And I mean, that's an amazing story, right? You guys figured out,
Yeah.
you guys had a problem, you
It's
guys
like,
figured through it, and you made it work.
why are you being
Definitely.
so mean? I'm not being mean. You're being mean.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
That's, I mean, it's a great story. And I think a great project you guys did. Again, like for us, again, like I'm not a DIYer. Beth's probably a little bit more than I am, but like she painted a couple of rooms in the house. Like for me, again, at an early age, I learned it wasn't for me. Even like when it comes to like realizing something's not working. So we bought the house in 2005. We got new washer and dryers in like 2006, I think it was, because the old ones were, probably original at the house or something. Earlier this year, maybe it was late last year, we wanted to get new washer and dryer. So obviously technology's changed. Things have changed in the last 15, 20 years, but we're like, okay, measured it out. We're like, okay, it's the same size, should be fine. New washer and dryer gets delivered. Everything looks great. Washer and dryer is amazing. Then we try to close the laundry room door, and we recognize that the door will not close because the dryer is a little further off, or the washer is a little further off the wall, because we were not accounting for newer washer and dryers, I guess, look differently cosmetically. They have a little more of a kind of like a round edge to the front. Additionally,
Yeah.
I think, and Beth will probably correct me on this one, I think the pipe might be a little wider in the back as well. So while previously, open closed wasn't a problem, new washer and dryer gets delivered, the guy leaves, we try to close the door, we're like, oh shoot, like this is not great. I mean, so we're like, do we take the door off the hinge? What do we do? Not sure, especially considering it's downstairs. You walk by to go to the kitchen. One of us will usually work downstairs, so if the dryer's running, you can hear it on work calls. So, I mean, it's been 6 months at this point, and we're like, well, we're gonna get the kitchen redone next year. Maybe we make it a kitchen and bathroom and laundry room door project. So that's kind of where we are. Where I'm sure if it was either one of you two, you'd probably be like, oh, we can create a sliding glass, blah, blah, blah. It'll look fantastic. I'm like, no, that's not me at all,
So the door's still open.
It's wide open. The door's still there. We have like we actually put like little like stickers with whatever on the washing machine, so that way if the door does try to close, like it won't damage or ruin the door.
Just take the door
Gotcha.
off the hinges. Just take the door off the
that was my
hinges.
initial thought. I'm not sure that Beth's quite there yet. I mean, we're gonna get the kitchen redone next year, so we're like, if we got a contractor in the house, we'll just add a little bit extra to the project and do something.
Yeah.
It probably looks nicer with it on the hinges and not closable, because the average person probably doesn't realize you can't close the door yet until they hear this podcast and like, oh, that's why the door is always open. Got it. Makes sense. So we went back and forth. Like, should we? Shouldn't we? Should we call someone in? To be honest, I mean, getting a contractor nowadays tends to be challenging to find somebody specific to the project, finding someone who will show up and stuff like that. So we're like, you know what? We're going to get some work done next year. We'll just add on to the project. It'll be fine for a year, and we'll just, move on from there.
Yeah.
I'm sure either one of you two, though, if this were to happen in your house, like, not a problem. We'll take it off the hinges. We'll create this, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. 30 seconds later, it's functional. It's good. I was like, how about a curtain? That's like, that looks kind of silly. I was like, you're probably right. So, I'm kind of creative in the ideas, but not necessarily in the execution when it comes to handy stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think our issue is, I was just gonna say, I think our thing is I would have taken it off the door, and then I would have redone something.
Yeah. She would have made a pocket door, or cut the wall.
It would have been a laundry room redo.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Also, is like we're trying to keep the project as small as possible, because I'm like, okay, so first we have a laundry room. So the washing machine and dryer getting replaced turns into a new door, which turns into, let's paint, take everything down in the laundry room, which turns into an open environment, my entire house. I'm like, you know what? I'm not ready for that kind of commitment yet. Let's just keep the door open for now and see what the contract.
What's one more year? What's a year?
Pretty much. So, I mean, initially it was kind of like, oh, this is kind of weird. But at this point, it's just second nature. It's like, oh, it's the house. It's kind of how it works. We even we're like, okay, so do we see if we can send back to washer and dryer? But we're like, yeah, but then we still need a washer and dryer. We already paid for this one. Like, how does that work? We're like, you know what? Path of least resistance. Let's just kind of deal with it for now. And next year we'll just kind of fix it up. So that's where we are, I guess.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other projects that you guys have done that you're super proud of that you want to talk about?
So I mean, literally like I said, we brought our house, and it was like, what do we do first? There were so many things that needed to be either that didn't meet what we wanted. So like, I would go to work. I was an NP just when COVID started. And so I was working like longer hours during the day, and I would come home and Tracie would have like the landscape completely redone. So when we brought our house, the backyard was covered in, half of it was concrete. And then the other half, they had like these tiny rocks. And Tracie was like, I'm not having it. I want some grass. And every day I'd come home and something would be different. And then it made its way to the front yard. And then we wanted to do like landscaping on the side, but the driveway came up too high. So her and I just looked at each other and we were like, let's go get a diamond blade saw and cut the driveway up. And so like the two of us just like, it went from there. We just started I would say every month there was something different that we were doing. And now like we look back and see photos of the house, like when we first bought it to what it's become. It's so nice to see, because it's like a little piece of us in each room. Like You can look at something and say like, Tracie made those. Or like if my sister just comes over and somebody new is in the house, she's like, did you see those? Tracie made those. Did you see that? Steph built that. Like they did this.
Right.
So it's funny to hear her. But I mean, we're constantly doing things in here that just and I look around now and I'm like, I want to replace that, or I'm going to rebuild that.
Great. No, I'm just kidding.
Any excuse to get me in Home Depot, I'm all for it.
Which is so funny, because like for me, I hate Home Depot. Like nothing gives me more anxiety. Well, okay, few things give me more anxiety than going to Home Depot on a weekend. Like for me, the thought of it, I'm like, I don't want, like the shed that we just bought a new shed. Hopefully it's getting installed next week. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I just went online. I was like, okay, this looks great. I think I went to Costco.com and just bought it and ordered it. I'm like, I have no interest in walking around Home Depot or like in Costco or stuff like that. I just don't like it. It's not something I enjoy.
Oh, so if work can be stressful.
Sure.
I work in a stressful job.
Not my work. My work is amazing. My boss and my boss's boss are both amazing as well. I would have nothing but positive things to say about it.
Of course, but you just sometimes other people would go get a drink or go do something, and I'm like, I'm going to Home Depot. I'm going to walk around for a little bit.
3 hours later.
Yeah.
And a credit card bill later, right?
Exactly, because I'm like, I could use that. I need that tool. Like,
So
That'll be handy.
so do you have like a garage full of just like stuff? So like,
We
just
don't
in
have a
case, like for
garage.
me, what's that?
Yeah.
We don't
You
have a
don't have
garage.
So do you have like a store? It's like for me, like I have, like I'm more of a technical type. So I have in my garage, I have boxes and bags full of just like wires, right? Any kind of wire you can think of, just in case. I probably have old telephone wires, probably old cable wires. We cut the cord years ago. We don't need it, but I still have them, whatever, just in case. Like, do you
Yeah.
have things in case you wake up, you're like, hey, I'd like to do X, Y, and Z, and the stuff's already here waiting, so I can just kind of put it together? Or is every project kind of a la carte and you have to go out and start from scratch?
Oh no. So I am the queen of scrap wood. I'm like, you using that? Because I can use that. And then it goes, so I have a shed, and the shed is, I have, her side where she's got like all the gardening stuff and the lawn stuff. And then my side is all Ryobi toolboxes and just a bunch of stuff. And then on the ceiling, I took pieces of wood just to hold up the wood that I've like gathered.
Right.
We're doing a project. Nope, that's good wood. My
Awesome.
father like did something, and I'm like, "You gonna use that wood? You doing anything with it?" And sure enough, like if something happens in the house, I'm like, I have the perfect piece of wood to fix.
Right.
And I look at her and I'm like, you see, this is why I save it.
Of course.
It's like Sanford and Son.
You know that car insurance commercial? I think it's like, what is it?
Oh, the becoming your
Progressive,
parents.
where like you become your parents, and
Yes.
they're like, no, and the guy goes like, no, that piece of scrap wood you can throw away. And I just looked at Steph and I was like, you are this commercial.
I am.
So Tracie, are you a little different in that? Like, do you not necessarily see things and say, let's save this and kind of like buy stuff a
No,
la carte for your
I
projects?
am
Or
like,
like how?
let's throw it away.
Yeah.
Like because our shed is very small and it's very
It is.
cramped, and we don't have a lot of storage in our actual house, so it's kind of like where we're gonna put this, I mean, I
And I'm
have
like, I'll
like
make room. I will make room for it.
so like my projects require smaller space, so I have a little bit of a couple drawers full of stuff, where her big tools and stuff like that. She has the shed. Me, like,
So
I'm just like, I have this machine. I'll put my stuff in this drawer, like, and I do have scraps, but it's nothing
Yeah.
nearly like stuff. I'm more of like I'm done cutting. What did I cut the other day? And you're like, you're throwing that away? Oh,
Yeah.
we have lawn furniture, and the
yeah.
cushions that we had bought are real slippery. Like they just slide right off the furniture, and they're hard to sit in. So I went to Walmart and I bought like the rug padding, where like the gripper, and I cut it and I put it and I threw the rest out. I mean, small strips.
Sure.
And
No, Jeff, I opened up the garbage and there was this sheet like this, and I was like, you throwing this away? We could use this.
So let me ask this on a similar question then. So leftovers, whether it be a restaurant or at home, are you both doggy
no,
bags, or is one of you
no.
leftovers and one of you tosses it out and wants something
We are
fresh
not
every time?
leftovers. We are not leftover
Nah.
people.
Interesting. I mean, I'm
We
also
say-
full disclosure. Like, I'm not also like I can't tell you how many times like the waiter will look at me and say, "You want me to bag this up?" And we're like, "No." They're like, "Why not?" Like, give me a look. Like, was the food okay?
Yeah.
Like for me, like I like things more fresh.
Fresh,
I like the variety, stuff like that. So I guess just knowing or seeing how like Stephanie likes to save everything from a woodworking perspective, and Tracie tosses everything out. Like I guess it
Yeah.
doesn't necessarily always correlate or go over to
No.
other aspects in life.
And we'll
No.
try to save leftovers, and then
Yeah.
they'll sit in the refrigerator for a
They'll
week,
just
and then
sit.
I wind up throwing them away anyway. So I'm like,
Yeah.
Oh,
it's
same.
not
Like
worth it.
Useless.
same. Like whenever like I've been kind of I guess bullied into taking a doggy bag from a restaurant. I'll take it either if it makes it to the car, if not getting tossed out on the way to the car.
Yeah.
It'll sit in the fridge for a few days. Till eventually, I'm like, okay, this is officially not good now. Now we can toss it
No.
out.
Yep.
I mean, there are a few things that I will try, like hibachi sometimes, just kind of like reheat it the next day. But for the most part, most things I'm looking at it, I'm like, it's not going to taste nearly as good reheated. I just want something
No.
else.
Yep,
Pizza
I
you can
agree.
always reheat.
Yes.
Pizza always
100%.
bounces back, right, Steph?
Absolutely.
So that's the only thing I usually save.
Very good. Awesome. Cool. Well, this has been an amazing conversation. So, ladies, thank you so much. I've really
you.
appreciated the
Yeah.
time. Thank you for joining. Anything
Thanks
else
for
you'd like
having
to
us.
share? Of course. Anything else you'd like to share or anything that you want to promote or talk about? I know you guys have a joint Instagram account with some of your projects. Anything you want to talk about?
So Jamie, she was all about like, you need to do, when she's hosting a party or something, she always has us making things. And, Tracie will whip it up on the Cricut. And so she was like, you need to get an Instagram account. And because like people would really like people would buy some of these things. Like Christmas time, I built a huge nutcracker. And just recently, someone was like, "I want that. Yeah, like, just tell me how much, and I want that." And I'm like, for me, it's more or less like my escape to do something like that. Like it's like it kind of decompresses. So I never really thought about doing that. But yeah, we should be. Jamie always calls us Janie and Jack. Oh, Janie and Jack will do it. Like they'll take care of it. So we came up with an Instagram account it's Janie and Jack, and we just started putting things up there, and eventually maybe somebody will catch on to it and see and say, "Hey, I want one of those nutcrackers. I want those wooden candy corns that you made for the fall." And we'll see how it goes.
And if anybody's looking for that Instagram account, I'll tag it in the show notes on Instagram. So again, as always, I'll post up pictures and whatever from this show at Everybody Has a Story Pod. Janie and Jack will also be linked on there. So if anybody wants to find it, click on, follow, see what else Stephanie and Tracie have done.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you, Jeff.
Tracie, anything else you'd like to add?
Nope, that's it.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much. So before we close here, I just want to thank everyone for joining. All the feedback I've gotten so far really does mean a lot to me. This has been a passion project for me. So similar to Stephanie and Tracie like doing crafts. For me, this has been kind of a project where I've been able to get out of my comfort zone. I've learned a lot. This has been just fantastic. So everybody who's joining on the journey, thank you so much. Just as a reminder, tell all your friends we're on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, iHeartRadio, Amazon, Castbox, Good Pods. Still not sure what Good Pods is, but we are there. On Instagram at Everybody Has a Story Pod. DMs are open, so if you want to be a future guest or if you just want to get a shout out on a show, whatever, just shoot me a note and I'll definitely shout you out. If you want me to promote something, let me know. My personal Instagram is Seltzer77. Remember, for all things Jeff Seltzer, you can find me over at jeffseltzer.com. Lastly, you can email at everybodyhasastorypod@gmail.com if you have anything that you want to, again, talk about on the show, or if you want to promote something or sell something, or if you want to be a sponsor. Like we can maybe make it Stephanie and Tracie's Everybody's a Story with Jeff Seltzer. Like we can sponsor it. We can put something in the background. Right now we have a teddy bear there, Duffy from Disney World. Maybe we can put your product there. I don't know, whatever it is. Anyhow, thank you all for joining so much. Really, really appreciate it. And we'll talk again next week. Take care, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.